Yo, what's up guys? You got II here today once again with a different kind of video, and with me I have two very special people, Illusion and Kmoody. You guys want to say hi?
Oh, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Moody.
This time he's not muted.
And you got Illusion here, also not muted. Hopefully.
We'll see. It might change throughout the video, but we'll see.
We're actually II's imaginary friends. We don't actually exist.
Yeah. So you guys just want to hop into it? So just to be clear, these are top 10 megas in draft format. So we're excluding like regular mons like Celesteela and Tapu Koko and things like that. We basically base them off of how viable they are in the draft format, what kind of sets they can run, and that sort of thing. You guys ready to hop into it?
Yeah.
Also, keep in mind, this is our personal opinion, although our opinions are objectively correct. If you guys have different ideas on what megas are better than the other, leave them down in the comments. We'd like to know your thoughts.
No, this is the set list. There's no objectivity in it at all.
We sent this to Game Freak, and they agreed with us, so this is pretty much the top 10 megas.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, so first we have the general ban list. We didn't want you to get the idea that we were leaving out some of the better megas that are generally banned in Draft League format, such as Mega Metagross and the Mega Latias and stuff like that. General Ubers are banned, so no Mega Rayquazas or Blazikens. Yeah.
Yeah, some megas are usually on the fence, like Mega Kangaskhan, the Mega Latias, and maybe Mega Mawile, but they're like banned in a lot of leagues, especially the ones that we're in, so we decided not to include them on the list.
Yeah, exactly. It just wouldn't make sense to include them because most leagues do not allow them. So we made a list, and if you want to go through and read that, be my guest. But here are our top 10. So number 10, we have Mega Blastoise. You guys want to talk about why we put it at number 10?
Mega Launcher. Yeah, Mega Blastoise has basically like 3 types of stabs with Mega Launcher, with Dark Pulse, Water Pulse, Aura Sphere. It's basically like having a stab fighting move, a stab dark move, and obviously stab water. And it could rapid spin. Though it is number 10 because it has pretty average speed and like reliable recovery.
Yeah, so like the only recovery it really gets is rest. You can run bulky sets, but again, that recovery is limited. And a lot of the times you're kind of forced to run rapid spin because if you draft this as a mega, you mainly just want a really good spinner. And it is a good spinner, but that's the move you'll have on it most of the time, unless you have a good defogger as well. But the movesets are also kind of limited. Most of the time you'll see people just running special Mega Blastoise because that's pretty much the only viable or good set you can run in draft format. Or at least it works out most of the time. Yeah.
It's pretty fat. It is pretty fat, so it can take hits.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Mega Blastoise. I think it's one of the most reliable spinners in the format. It's really bulky. Things I'd like, one of the cons is it's really strong, but kind of underwhelming. So a lot of Pokemon are able to deal with its like pseudo stabs. It's also has to like rely on wish support to be able to, stay in the game. It gets worn down very easily, which is a downside. But it's a great mon, and if you've ever used it, you'd understand why it's on the list.
Well,
it's a fun mon to use, but it's not necessarily the best mon, if that makes sense to you guys. It's like because you could just like nail people with dark pulses and nail people with like scalds, and you're gonna hit hard. But,
yeah, and you could come up with some interesting tech for Mega Blastoise as well, like maybe Dragon Tail to get rid of setup sweepers, or maybe even Aqua Jet for priority. But
I believe this thing gets haze.
Yeah.
I've also seen Miracle be used. I've used it myself, so there's a lot of options for Mega Blastoise. I just wish it got like good recovery. Otherwise, this mod will be a lot higher on the list.
Yeah. Probably
like
at number 9. But yeah, so that's our number 10, Mega Blastoise. On to number 9. So for number 9, we had Charizard Y. and it's probably one of the best wall breakers in the game. The drought ability boosts its stab tremendously, has a decent speed tier, base 100, it gets recovery, and can set up, and it can also be both physical and special. Fire Blast in the Sun is just so strong coming from this thing, but the only reason it's at number 9 and not higher on the list is because of rocks. You guys want to talk more about its setbacks?
Yeah, so the biggest thing, like, you could see, this thing is super weak to rocks. Like, if you see somebody has a Charizard Y in your team, your first priority is set up rocks, and it's really hard for Charizard Y to deal with. It takes 50% every time it switches in. It has good recovery and roost, and one of like the biggest downsides is when you switch it in rock, you usually have to roost because it took 50%. It comes in at like 51, or if you took even like a little bit, like 20%, it comes in at 30%, and it isn't able to tank any hits. This thing's pretty bulky, but because of rocks, it can't really be used as a wall.
Yeah, so like if rocks are up, you cannot switch this in on an attack, pretty much.
I think more of a problem for it is actually its speed, because I feel like it's pretty revengeable. At least I think so, with like a really like fast electric type, and most electric types are fast.
Yeah, I can see that. A base 100 isn't too bad, but it's not the fastest in Gen 7, of course.
For Megas, though, like, you can't run Scarf on any Megas, obviously, so it's like one of those things where, you can know exactly what max amount of speed it's going to be at, and then prep accordingly for it.
Yeah. I mean, it does get Dragon Dance, so it does have some setup options, but it also gets Tailwind, by the way, which we didn't mention in the pros, but you could maybe catch someone off guard with that.
One thing I really like about Charizard Y is it's a fire type able to beat down bulky water types. And it's one of the few fire types able to do that.
True. Solar Beam in the Sun. Pretty good. But,
because of the sun, a lot of water types don't want to switch into a Fire Blast, especially if they're not Spadef.
Another reason why it's at number 9 and not higher on the list is Fire Blast misses. Like, Fire Blast is exceptionally strong versus a lot of things, but you run the chance of missing Fire Blast every time you try to use the move. Flamethrower is actually considerably weaker. It still does a lot of damage, of course, but if you want more output, you want to get an ensured kill, you have to run Fire Blast. So, so that's why we put it at number 9. On to number 8. So for number 8, we had Charizard X, just a bit higher than Charizard Y. We actually debated about this for quite a while, but we chose Charizard X for number 8 because it's basically, it does its job a bit better than Zard Y does. It takes less damage from rocks, has good setup like Zard Y, but with the setup, it's more viable because of the Tough Claws and the attack boost. Also gets recovery from Roost, good coverage, can be run bulky with Will-O-Wisp, decent speed tier, the same as Zard Y. It's at number 8 because it's weak to rocks and it loses its ground immunity. So once you Mega Evolve, you're Fire and Dragon and not Flying, which is good because it's good, both good and bad. You're not 4 times weak to rocks once you Mega Evolve, but now you're weak to ground. Semi-predictable, and you kind of know what set they're going to run. Most of the time it'll be Dragon Dance or Bulky. Anything to add, guys?
Well, this is a Mon. Yeah, I honestly, I'm not a huge fan of Charizard X, but it's a really solid Mon. Compared to its counterpart Y, its typing is a lot better defensively. It's not 4 times weak to rock, so you can run this bulky Roost. I know a lot of people run the Will-O-Wisp set, and it's actually able to set up stub on a lot of Mons. One thing, there's a lot of common checks to Charizard X it has trouble breaking through. Even though it's a threatening sweeper, this thing is surprisingly hard to sweep with it. A lot of opponents are able to deal with this pretty effectively, especially with like a bulky water. It's really hard to get like a full setup sweep with this, but it's really good at pressuring an opponent's team and forcing prep in certain ways.
Yeah, a lot of the times you'll find trouble in if you have this Mega on your team, you'll find trouble in finding the perfect opportunity to set up. If your opponent prepped well, he'll have ways to deal with it on most of the mons on his team to at least prevent setup, even if it requires sacking that mon. So, yeah, that's why we put Charizard X at number 8.
I'm just going to say this right before we move on. I don't agree with this one.
No.
I think Mega Charizard X is one of the best Megas in the format. I think it's top 3 worthy. I just think like Flare Blitz plus Dragon Claw.
Well, unfortunately for you, this is not objective. Game Freak agreed with us that this is number 8 on the draft format list. So, sorry.
Darts, they would love him a lot higher.
All right. Well, with that said, let's move on to number 7. So for number 7, we have Mega Diancie. You guys want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'll talk about it a little bit. This mon has always been great since its introduction. It has Uber's level stats, like one of the highest base stat totals of even among Megas. And with Gen 7's release, it got a huge buff with the auto speed boost. It has fantastic moveset all around with it got Power Gem, which is great. Rock Fairy Staff is absolutely fantastic coverage. It gets things like Earth Power and then Psyshock to hit bulky poisons too. It's also waifu material. If you look at its design, that's pretty much Bay. Why don't you talk about its downsides, Moody?
It's also Plitty. And, yeah.
The answer is catch this HP steal, you know what I mean? Or catch this surf. This thing has terrible HP stat.
Yeah, its HP is pretty bad. It's 4 times weak to steel. Defensive typing is not that good. It's weak to common offensive types like ground, water, grass, that sort of thing. Although we put decent setup in the pros, like Charizard X, if you know what this thing can do, you'll have trouble setting up with it. Because a lot of times when you're using it, you'll probably fear the HP steal on things that might not normally carry it. But yeah, we put it at number 7 mostly because of its good stab and good speed tier. You can Mega Evolve that immediately now without running Protect like you had to do in Gen 6. And without the use of the move slot for Protect, you can now run things like HP Fire or HP Ice. Yeah, and Magic Balance also pretty much helps with the mind games. If you have Mega Diancie Mega Evolve, people might not go for Rocks versus you for fear that you might switch that in. Stuff like that.
One thing that really sucks about its 4 times weakness of steel is a lot of mons that you wouldn't expect get Bullet Punch. Especially fighting type, which this Pokemon you think would beat. A lot of them get Bullet Punch. Mons like Pangoro or even...
Yeah.
But a pro I think we forgot to put on there is Diamond Storm, which has a high chance to raise defense by +2, which is a lot. This Pokemon has high base defense, but it's held back by its HP. But when it gets +2 defense, this one can leave a lot of attacks you wouldn't think it could.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said.
If Diancie got Play Rough, how far do you think it goes up?
It doesn't.
I think so.
Most people would still pretty much run Moonblast.
Yeah, alright, fair enough.
Because Play Rough has the chance to miss, of course, and Moonblast is a better Play Rough on the special side. And now that it gets Power Gem, I see most people running either mixed or special. Just what I see personally. But yeah, that's why we have Mega Diancie at number 7. On to number 6.
Yeah. Maybe if it got Quiver Dance, we'd put it at number 1.
Maybe. So for number 6, we have Mega Venusaur. It has a fantastic ability in Thick Fat. Decent speed tier. I know we said decent speed tier for the Zards. They have base 100, but base 80 isn't too bad either, especially for something as bulky as Mega Venusaur.
For this bulk, it's good.
Yeah, the great typing is Grass and Poison, which works very well with the Thick Fat ability. The only thing you really have to fear is Psychic and Flying. Good move pool. It does get access to Swords Dance, gets access to physical grass moves, even though most of the time you'll be running special moves like Giga Drain and Sludge Bomb. It can be both offensive and defensive, and it has really good recovery with Synthesis and Leech Seed. You guys want to talk about the cons?
Mega Venusaur, like sometimes like its coverage can be a little limited, and sometimes you have a little bit of 4-move slot syndrome. Like you want to run coverage, you want to run Synthesis, you might want to run Leech Seed, Sleep Powder. You got to really make a decision here and there. I love Mega Venusaur personally. Like personally, it's one of my favorite megas to use. But like it is one of those mons that can like. There's so many options. It's almost too much options. You know, sometimes you kind of want more of like a
exactly.
Fun besides jack of all trades, because then you get caught into like can do a lot of things really well, but not everything exceptional. Yeah, I guess it can wall out teams exceptional, but
and the thing I found a lot of the time is if you don't want to get walled by steel types, you kind of have to run a hidden power, or even like maybe dragon types. You might have to run HP Ice or something like that.
You could run outrage Mega Venusaur.
True. Sword Stance, you know. It also kind of requires support to be effective in what it does. It can't just beat a team on its own. Most megas can't, but with this, it's kind of reliant on the bulk it has. But with that bulk, it needs another bulky mon to take hits that it can't from, as I said before, flying and psychic types. Yeah.
One thing I want to point attention to is while it has great recovery, Synthesis is kind of lackluster for a wall. It has only 8 PP, and while that seems like a lot of time Venusaur wishes it has had more PP for Synthesis, and it gets worn down a lot by things like sand, especially with Synthesis. But this mon is very good, very bulky. Whenever you're facing this, like thinking about how to kill this mon, it's really hard. It's hard to OHKO this Pokemon with anything that's not flying or psychic, and even then, it can tank a hit.
Yeah. Well said. All right, so that is why we chose Mega Venusaur as number 6. On to number 5. So for number 5, we decided to put Mega Scizor as our 5th choice. It's great with momentum and U-turn, very bulky, great resistances. It's only weak to fire, which is a huge buff, but unfortunately, it's also a negative because it's 4 times weak to fire. So a lot of teams you'll see will probably run HP Fire to deal with Mega Scizor, or they'll put a fire move on pretty much every one of their mons if they can. But other than that, Scizor is a fairly decent mega. It's a very reliable defogger, of course. Unless it's up against a fire type, it'll pretty much always be able to get a defog off. Has one of the best priorities in the game in Bullet Punch, Technician Bullet Punch. Can set up fairly easily with Sword Stance or even Agility. As I said before, it's only weak to one type, and it can be both offensive and defensive. You guys want to continue on my list?
I'm a fan of Mega Scizor. So one of the things I really like about Mega Scizor, it's like it kind of has like it's both a shield and a sword. It can function as both a wall and like a sweeper at the same time, due to Sword Dance and being insanely bulky.
Yeah.
With Bullet Punch, like it has like not that great speed, but with Bullet Punch, it's able to kind of take advantage of that speed because its priority is so strong. And it has a lot of great resistances and it's a great typing. But one thing I really don't like about Scizor is that a lot of the things it can wall, like fairy types or dragon types, can take advantage of its 4 times weakness with a hidden power fire to take a huge chunk. But Scizor is so bulky, it usually doesn't take too much, maybe like 50% if you're like an offensive mon.
Yeah. So what I will say is if you're running HP Fire on a thing that wouldn't normally run HP Fire, Scizor actually takes that fairly well for being 4 times weak to it.
A really good special bulk. Like you could like kind of catch people being lazy with the HP Fire and just, take 1 at least, or turn that into a 3 KO.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a defensive mon, like you can't put HP Fire on like a Cradily and then expect this to counter Scizor, or do like 37% maybe from like defensive mons. This mon is bulky as hell. Another disadvantage it has is it's kind of straightforward and has 4 move slots. Shinju, similar to Scizor, one of its moves almost has to always be Roost. One of them has to always be Bullet Punch, so it only gets around like 2 moves to work with. But with some creative prep, you can kind of maybe pull off some different sets.
I've seen some pretty cool things with Scizor, like an SD agility baton pass.
Illusion, are you thinking a Struggle Bug?
Struggle Bug and pretty much 6-0 the enemy team. So this is a great Mega overall, though.
One set in particular that I remember running once in the TMT was Agility, Struggle Bug, Hidden Power Rock, I think, and then Baton Pass, right? I'm pretty sure that was the set. It was Hidden Power Rock for a Charizard Y, I think. Am I right? Or was it Charizard X?
It was Charizard X.
It was Charizard X. Okay. But what did it do? We like went full modest on that thing, and it did like what, over half to Zardex?
It did around half, but it made it so they couldn't set up on us reliably.
Yeah. But who knows? You can always come up with something creative for Mega Scizor, which is why it's like
even mons that seem straightforward have like surprising depth to it, but it's hard to make like a weird set with Scizor works. Its move pool is pretty bad, to be honest.
I mean, it gets knockoff, it gets Brutal Swing now, which has the boost from Technician. I remember that was a big set on it. It was what? It was like Swords Dance, Brutal Swing, Roost.
Brutal Swing didn't make contact.
Pre-OU Bank, I think, on the ladder when Gen 7 first came out. So
Brutal Swing doesn't make contact?
Yeah, I think it doesn't make contact, and it gets the Technician boost. But yeah, most of the time people will be running U-Turn for that momentum, which is actually fairly good. A lot of drafts kind of need good momentum grabbers to have the synergy they want. So it's definitely not a bad pick if you consider all the other megas, although I would not say it's it might barely be around 1 pick if, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think maybe in Gen 6 it would have been, but in Gen 7 I think there's a lot stronger round 1 picks. But this is definitely a high round pick, in my opinion.
Maybe round 2.
I feel like this Mega sometimes it goes undrafted a lot. I feel like Mega Scizor goes undrafted a lot.
Maybe. I don't know. You can run a lot of sets. I don't know. I feel like this is a good round 2, round 3 pick.
It's one of those mons that people are scared to draft because of the 4 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Drafted,
but they'll find if they use it correctly that it'll pay off in the end, for the most part.
You have to. This is a Mega that you have to like going into it be like, all right, I know I'm going to build a team around Mega Scizor. It's not like a plug and play Mega.
Yeah.
Like a Mega.
Yeah. The thing is though, like because it only has 1 weakness in Fire, if you plan on getting Mega Scizor, you can plug that Fire weakness fairly easily by getting something like Heatran or a bulky Water type, and with that you'll be able to scout for any hidden power fires.
No, I mean of course, but it's just like it's not as like I think Mega Scizor is a little hard to use, but it's good. Like it's not as user friendly as people,
I could see why you think that.
I feel like this mon, like, while it has sweeping potential, that it's hard to take advantage of its sweeping potential, but the utility it brings and like how it's the dual threat it has defensively and offensively, I think this is a worthy spot at number 5.
Yeah, I agree.
You like our next mon.
All right, so now that we got Mega Scizor out of the way, we can move on to number 4, which is Mega Gallade. I personally have it right now in the GPL, as I'm sure you saw versus my match versus Dougie if you watched it. So the reason why we have Mega Gallade at number 4 is mainly because of the speed boost it got from Gen 7. It has fantastic stab and move pool. It gets things like Close Combat, Zen Headbutt, Knockoff, Leaf Blade, Shadow Sneak, Swords Dance, Bulk Up, Wish, that sort of thing. Has a really great speed tier. Same speed tier as Mega Diancie, so max speed is 350 at level 100, so that's very good. Again, it's semi-bulky, 95 defense, 115 speed def. So you can run sets like Bulk Up, and with that defense, you can run Swords Dance at times. Yeah, this is overall a really great Mega to draft. As long as it has a good team to back it, you can't really go wrong with Mega Gallade.
This is a mon I'm a huge fan of this generation. The base 110 speed, like Diancie, it just shot up, but it got even better than Diancie with the speed boost. This mon has a surprising amount of utility with Will-O-Wisp taunt, and it has great setup with SD and bulk up. I honestly think this mon should be higher on the list, but I was convinced that it should be at number 4. One reason why it wouldn't be higher is that it's weak to status, and that it's hard to break through a lot of walls without setup, and even with setup. A lot of the bulky even though it has knockoff, a lot of bulky psychics will just run a Cobra Berry to deal with it easily, and they won't be able to break it. But this mon is really good, especially moveset. It gets everything it wants. Poison Jab to hit fairies, knockoff to hit bulky psychics and bulky ghosts. It's just a great mon overall.
Yeah.
This mon's amazing. I mean, I love this mon. It's probably one of the most user-friendly megas, pretty in terms of what you're going to do. I mean, obviously you can get really complicated with it, but at the same time, it's one of those mons that you could, easily just run 4 moves if you really wanted to, 4 coverage moves, or run SD 3 moves, bulk up if you wanted to, or you can get really creative with it as well with maybe a Wish Protect, which would be really cool.
Yeah.
One thing I also like about it,
that leads us into the 4 move slot syndrome. There are a lot of moves you'll probably want to bring on Mega Gallade for every match, and you can only run 4 of those moves on it. But yeah, other than that, it's a great Mega. You can't really go wrong with getting it in a draft league.
I really like about Mega Gallade is its fighting stab is close combat, not high jump kick like some of the other fighting Megas, which means it doesn't have to rely on misses, but it barely loses out on any of the power.
Yeah, I'd agree on that. So anything else to add, guys?
Cool looking mon, too. Great design.
True. That's the real reason this number 4, the cape. But yeah, so that's why we chose Mega Gallade as the number 4 top 10 Mega in draft league format. So let's move on to number 3. So for number 3, we decided to choose Mega Medicham, and we had some debate about this between which is better, Mega Medicham or Mega Gallade. We decided Mega Medicham was slightly better, only because it does its job really well in pretty much every scenario. With pure power, that thing hits really hard. It's probably one of, if not the most strong physical attacker in the game, without any setup. Anything else you guys want to add?
I mean, it's probably the best wall breaker, right?
Yeah, definitely one of the best.
Really good when you cannot check this defensively. You have to check it offensively. I mean, sure, there's bulky ghosts and everything like that, but if all you have to worry about is ghost types, let's be real, there are not that many good ghost types.
Yeah. If this thing got knockoff, it'd probably be number 1.
This thing got knockoff, it would be a problem.
Yeah,
the presence Mega Medicham has on team building and just seeing it is immense. When you see a Mega Medicham, you're scared. This thing is powerful. There's barely any Pokemon that can take an HJK. Well, even a lot of Psychics, especially when this thing is adamant, take 48% from, or 43% from high jump kick. And then this mon can run some down bulky psychic, things like double edge, things like even bulk up.
Yeah, with double edge, even defensive Mew can't take it on effectively after rocks, which is insane, because Mew is one of the main counters or checks to Medicham that are even in the game.
It's just so good. If you have Tailwind support, all you gotta do is click that Tailwind and just get it popping.
Yeah. But the main reason why it's not number 1 is because a lot of the time, if you want that power, you have to rely on high jump kick hitting. And, well, this is a game of odds. So if you want to win, go for that jump kick. If you want to maybe not win, don't go for it.
Another thing is high jump kick can be prepped for with things like protect, and like with ghost types, it kind of like puts some mind games on, because if you go for high jump kick, you're not just missing, you're taking half your health as damage.
Yeah, pretty much. And another thing is, it's pretty straightforward in what it does. You're not going to see a special Medicham ever, really. The speed is kind of lackluster, I guess. Decent speed, I guess. It's base 100, but a lot of things are base 100.
I mean, you could easily slap a scarf on something and try to knock it out. But I mean, if you have, it could be really unfair.
Yeah.
One thing I like about Mega Medicham is 2 things. That it has good priority. Bullet Punch, like as we were talking about earlier with things like Mega Diancie, this thing can like pretty much OHKO with Bullet Punch. And Fake Out. Fake Out is used, like I've used Fake Out a lot to revenge kill frail mons or weakened mons. And you can even use Fake Out to get like for mind games, so you can predict the switch and hit it with like a high jump kick, which will destroy something. It's also surprisingly bulky. Like, it's not super bulky, but it can tank hits fairly well. More than you think from a wall breaker.
Yeah,
it's not a class.
I don't think it's the defenses that are the problem. I think it's the HP. It doesn't have a good health stat.
Hear that. I love Mega Medicham, though.
Yeah. If you're going to draft it, though, you'll probably want some good support mon. Maybe something that could pass speed into it, or something like that, I guess. Hazards, definitely.
Golipede and Mega Medicham combo.
Yeah, that could be effective if you use it right and if speed pass is allowed in that league. But
especially SD pass. Ooh,
yeah, if it got close combat, it'd be a lot better.
Yeah.
There's also some interesting options with bulk up and baton pass, but if you're bulking up with Mega Medicham, you're better off just attacking, because this thing will pretty much kill whatever's in front of it, especially a +1.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah. But that's why we have Mega Medicham at number 3. Is there anything else?
Thighs.
What was that?
That and them thick thighs. Mega Medicham.
True, that's the real reason. You've exposed us. But yeah, that's why we have it at number 3. On to number 2. So for number 2, we have Mega Lopunny. And I'm pretty sure it's a bit self-explanatory, but if you guys want to comment on why we have it at number 2.
Well, obviously, we have Mega Lopunny at number 2 because it's the perfect waifu Pokemon. Just look at those stockings and those ripped stockings and those thighs.
Yeah.
But if we're being real, this Pokemon is just great. It has great speed, one of the best speed tiers in the game. Only really outsped by other faster Megas and Scarfers. And because of the speed, it really allows it like a lot of bulk, because you're able to invest in bulk. And it can even run Adamant Nature. With Adamant Nature, it still outspeeds the base 110s, which is pretty huge.
Mm-hmm.
The aspect of Mega Lopunny is that with Scrappy, there's no typing in the game that resists its dual stabs.
Yeah. One of the reasons why it's like Medicham, a lot of times you have to rely on high jump kick if you want to do a lot of damage. If it didn't have to rely on that, if it got close combat, again, it'd be a lot better. But that's why it's at number 2.
I think this mon.
Yeah.
I think this mon harder than people think it is to use. I think people can look really bad with this mon, but can also look
good. The thing with Mega Lopunny is it's powerful, right? It's good. But if you have something that can switch into it and recover HP off of it, then it's kind of a liability for your team if you put a Rocky Helmet on that mon in specifically. That's the way I've dealt with it in the past. Most of the time, if my opponent has a Mega Lopunny, I'll put Rocky Helmet on something, and then I'll put Recovery on that thing, and you'll just see Lopunny fall.
Pokemon has a lot of trouble breaking through bulky fairies, bulky psychics, but it gets things like Power Up Punch to, help it a little bit.
Yeah.
Interesting gimmicks you wouldn't expect. I've seen Cosmic Power Baton Pass, which is something like you see this as a gimmick, but this is something you can't discount.
It can be scary, yeah. Like if you're expecting Mega Lopunny to just straight up attack or kill something and it goes for sub or Cosmic Power, like you should be worried.
Fantastic anti-offense mon. Like it really forces you to run a Scarf on a Pokemon, even if you wouldn't want to run a Scarf.
Yeah.
Because even Encore like for that want to recover in your face, you could like run Encore, then lock them into recover, then Power Punch up, and then
it has a lot of Mega Lopunny. You'd be surprised how much tech you can run with this Mega. It's not just the fake out high jump kick, return, ice set.
Although that set is good.
Yes. Although that set is good. You can run quick attack even. You could run maybe fake out last resort, which would be very interesting.
Be real and run Blizzard.
Yeah, you could try to run that special Mega Lopunny. Might not work out for you, but you can say you tried.
As a normal type, it gets a lot of cool moves that it can tech over.
Yeah.
And with Power Punch, it can stuff like Encore and Power Punch. It can even try and take advantage of certain type of walls.
Yeah.
And if you have a Pokemon that tries to wall this, you can maybe take advantage of it with another supporting member. But I think this Pokemon is one of the best Megas to stand on its own. You can just put it on any team, and it can pretty much
do something.
Be pretty decent.
Yeah. You can look like a god with it, or look like a complete.
I will say this though. If you're having trouble dealing with it, take the Rocky Helmet advice. A lot of times when people will use Mega Lopunny, versus me in particular, and they hit it with any attack, they take that Rocky Helmet damage. Even if they went for Power Up Punch, a lot of the times they'll get scared of that damage and they'll switch out. So if you have any issue dealing with this thing, try Rocky Helmet on something. Again, this does not apply if you have a hyper-offensive team, but if you have some bulk, then I suggest try taking my advice if you're having issues.
I don't think Rocky Helmet auto beats this thing. Like we said, this has a lot of tech that it can surprise you with. So don't underestimate this Pokemon. It's number 2 on the list for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, I think we'll move on to our honorable mentions. So,
I want to talk about Mega Gardevoir. I believe this Pokemon should have been on the list. Maybe it should have even been number 6. I'm a huge fan of Mega Gardevoir. This is one of the greatest Megas of last generation, but the 8 nerf has hurt it a lot. It has one of the strongest Fairy Stabs in the entire game. It has a monster special attack, enough to rival Mega Gallade's physical attack, and Hyper Voice, even with the Pixelate nerf, is very... It also has a lot of utility in its own right. Will-O-Wisp, T-Wave, Wish. I've seen a lot of Wish set being ran. Encore to break other walls. Screens is pretty cool. I really like screens. One thing I really like is Calm Mind on this. It's a pretty good setup. I think maybe they bring on their special defensive wall, and you can Calm Mind. One thing I really like is that it's a Hyper Voice. Yeah. You can go.
One of the reasons why I, of course, made the executive decision here that Mega Gardevoir should not be in the top 10 list is mainly because, as Illusion mentioned earlier, was because of the Pixelate nerf, but also because in this generation, a lot of more fairies were introduced and a lot more defensive counters were kind of brought in that could take on Mega Gardevoir a bit easier. Celesteela in particular is one I'm thinking of. Mega Gardevoir, again, it would have been on this list if it had maybe 1 or more points in speed. The base 100 is, while a decent speed, it outspeeds a lot, it doesn't outspeed the things it needs to do.
Base 100 is a crowded speed tier.
Yeah. I see why you didn't put on the list. You could talk me into it over Blastoise or Zard Y. I mean, even to a degree, but I don't know.
Of course.
One thing I like about it is Hyper Voice hit. You can use Side Shock to hit on the physical side. So fully, like if you're only like specially defensive, you can use Side Shock to take advantage of that. Like I said, a lot of utility. Taunt helps a lot. Encore helps a lot. Even because I haven't run a Destiny Bond set, but take advantage. Like we said, its speed tier kind of sucks. Base 100 is a crowded speed tier, especially among megas. As you saw, we have the Zards, we have Mega Metacham, and we have Mega Gardevoir. Base 100 isn't that great a speed tier for a Mega, and especially for Gardevoir.
Yeah. But so that's pretty much why we decided to include it as an honorable mention. Remember, because this is our list, Mega Gardevoir is not in top 10 Megas. It will always be less than the 10 we have on this list. Don't you forget that. So the next honorable mention we have is Mega Sableye.
We'll talk about Gen 7 nerf with all the fairies.
Yeah, so Mega Sableye is a lot worse in draft and on the ladder this gen. Again, it still has Magic Bounce, of course, only one weakness in fairy typing. But the thing with this is you can't really run Prankster as the first move. So last generation in Gen 6, you could Mega Evolve and get a Will-O-Wisp off as you could use the Prankster before you Mega Evolve, but this gen you can't. So if you were to Mega Evolve in this generation and go for a Will-O-Wisp, you'd still go at the same speed you would normally go as once you Mega Evolved. So it's not as good as that in that regard.
That hurts its lead matchup a lot because a lot of times you couldn't lead a physical attacker. You could just Will-O-Wisp, and they couldn't like even sub or anything because the priority Will-O-Wisp would burn the physical mon, and that would pretty much neuter it.
Yeah, the same thing with it going for Calm Mind. If it's up against a threatening special attacker, you can't get that Calm Mind off first.
Yeah. Plus, also with the introductions of Z moves, like adding that extra power really hurt on like a lot of like different kind of calcs and different kind of builds for Mega Sableye.
Yeah, very much. And like last generation, though, Mega Sableye can become setup fodder and a bit predictable. Yeah, so that's kind of why we have it as an honorable mention. Though I will say one good virtue about this mon is it does help prevent people from getting up hazard versus you. A lot of times in prep, people will be deterred if you have this mon from even attempting hazards up, even if there's a viable way of getting them up.
I think this Pokemon still stands as the greatest hazard deterrent in the entire game.
Oh yeah,
but it has gotten worse. It has gotten worse. Still has like a sort of 4 move slot syndrome, especially now. It kind of has to run Protect.
Yeah, either Protect or Fake Out.
But it's
at least on the ladder.
I think it has to protect for Z. If you're in a league with that allows like 3 Z moves users, I think you have to run it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty much why we have Mega Sableye as an honorable mention. There wasn't really much debate about whether this thing should be on the top 10 list. But for out of respect for what it once was, we decided to put it on the honorable list. And with that, I believe now we can move on.
Don't get us wrong, Bill. These megas are still good on the honorable mentions.
Yeah.
It's not top 10 good.
All megas are top 10 worthy, which makes them terrible.
Pretty much trash. You're right. Except for Mega Gardevoir, that should be on the list.
All right, so with that, we'll move on to the number 1 Mega in Draft League format.
Who could it be?
Mega Pincer. All right, so you guys want to talk about why we have this as number 1?
This thing has one of the best abilities in the game, Aerolate. I know we were just talking about the 8 nerfs, but Flying Stab is still as broken as ever. There's not a lot of things like Pokemon that resist flying. This Pokemon is a large presence. It can pretty much win games in its own right. And one of the best things about it Look at this here. It outspeeds base 100s. We were just talking about how crowded the base 100 speed tier is, and this outspeeds it, which honestly helps it a lot, especially when facing opposing megas.
And then SD Quick Attack is pretty... can take out a lot of mons. Like, to get one SD up in Quick Attack, like, the normal Quick Attack is taking out so many. Well, Aerial Aid boosted, but still.
Yeah. You can run Substitute on this, although you can do that for a lot of things. You can run Facade in case you're worried about getting burned or poisoned. Even Feint if you're worried about Protect or something like that. It gets Earthquake in close combat, which is good for bulky steel types. Things like that. So overall, very decent pick.
I honestly think this Pokemon has probably the best stab in the game.
Yeah.
Beaten by E-Killer Arceus, but Aerial Aid Quick Attack is one of the best stabs in the game. And that tech still exists. Tech still exists is Feint. I've used Feint Mega Pincer to outspeed Weavile's Ice Shard, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. It also gets bulk up, by the way. Although Sword Dance is probably better in most scenarios.
Mega Pincer, though. I don't think it's an easy mod to use. I think a lot of people look...
Really?
Like, people don't draft this thing, even though I think it's pretty good.
I think it's probably
they get intimidated.
All you do is click Sword Dance Return.
Click Sword Dance at the right time, you know?
Yeah. Again, this thing is a lot better if rocks are not on the field.
With Mega Pincer, if you bring it in, you should win the game.
Theoretically.
This mod really, like, when I think about it, like, this mod almost has no switch-ins. You say maybe Zapdos, you could just Stone Edge that.
Yeah.
Like Sword Dance, Stone Edge.
What's also really good about Mega Pincer is it can beat a lot of the other Megas.
Pretty much.
Does it beat Scizor?
It beats it.
Potentially.
Maybe if, like,
with Sword Dance, it can.
Yep.
Comes in on Pincer, it's getting destroyed. Scizor doesn't take return well.
Yeah. You can't really switch Scizor in. If you're max defense, then Pincer gets a free setup.
Honestly, I would say this is the best wall breaker on the list, even better than Mega Medicham, really. I can't think of any Pokemon that walls this super well. Maybe like full Fizz Def Celesteela, but even then, if you like Swords Dance,
enough time,
it's pretty threatening. Yeah, if you even like Swords Dance +2 close combat is doing a ton to.
Does it get
that does a lot. That's not a wall. I've been in that scenario.
The main wall that comes to mind against Mega Pincer is Rotom Wash.
It doesn't take like a +2 close combat or even X-Scissors that well, especially after getting weakened.
Rotom Wash is very bulky when you EV it to take on Mega Pincer.
But like just a couple, like you switch Rotom Wash on this once on one attack, like maybe a knockoff, and it no longer is a counter to Mega Pincer.
If you go for knockoff, yeah, pretty much. But again, you have to worry about, with this thing, you have to worry about rocks on the field at all times. You need to make sure that's off so you can get a good switch into it. Anything else you guys want to add about why we chose this as number one?
I think the best check to this Pokemon in Draft League is Tapu Koko.
Yeah, although Pincer does get Earthquake, so if it's a prediction...
But how is it going to outspeed Koko?
It can't, of course. But if it gets enough Swords Dance up, maybe it can do 80% with Quick Attack.
Like Raikou.
But if we're being honest, Koko isn't a switch-in. It's just a deterrent to it completely sweeping.
Yeah. But again, Koko is probably top 10 best mons draftable.
Make an argument, but yeah, but this Pokemon is really good. I would say the best wall breaker among the megas, which is why it's at number one. It has a really good speed tier. it beats a lot of the other megas on the list. The other 3 don't take a Swords Dance quick attack. Even if we go down the list, Mega Blastoise gets destroyed by Swords Dance return.
Yeah, and if you don't
Swords
want
Dance
to
return.
use return, let's say you want to use like Double Edge or something, you'll be doing more damage than you would with return, things like that. So, and it'd still be stab, or even like if you want to run Tech hit Giga Impact.
That'd be too fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Impact. Oh my god.
I believe a lot of people don't draft it. I think they're just deterred by its quad weakness and stealth rock weakness, which is why I think a lot of people don't draft like Zard Y. But yeah. I honestly believe this is probably this should be in the conversation for the best mega, and that's why we have it at number 1. Although this is objective fact approved by Game Freak.
Yeah, so there's no arguing us here. We know it's best. Illusion here got what, top 4 in the March Madness tournament?
Yeah, so I know iPro uses fairly well in the March Madness tourney. It was able to beat like something that was meant to wall it. Vullaby, it knocked off the Eviolite and then started to wreak havoc. It's really strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add?
You can even run Body Slam for the paras, but yeah. I think this thing is best as a wall breaker.
If this thing got Roost,
then it would be over.
And then it'd be over. Exactly.
If this thing got extreme speed, this thing would be Ubers.
Oh yeah, the E-Speed Mega Pincer. Oh god.
Yeah. This thing is actually like stronger than Mega Salamence. If it got even Dragon Dance on this thing.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add before we end the video?
I just want you guys to know that this is objective fact, but we're willing to look over your opinion. Just post it in the comments. I'm interested to know what you guys think.
Yeah, we're interested in telling you how wrong you actually are. As we said many times, this is set in stone. There is no arguing with us. We're always right. So, yeah, with that, thank you guys for joining me for this top 10 mega vid.
I just want to point out one thing. Celesteela and Rotom aren't an always counter. Pincer gets Smackdown plus EQ. I'm just saying, put that in your hidden tech file.
All right, well, thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for more content.